Good afternoon, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Tuesday to you. We are tracking Francine and a shift to the right that puts more of southeastern Louisiana in the direct path of the storm. If you remember a few days ago, this was something we were concerned more about potentially for far southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. But those of you in Florida probably saw this a lot during Ian and Charlie. Storm tracks sometimes can still adjust in the last day before landfall, changing the forecast quite a bit. So here's a look at what we're concerned about. This is the growing risk now that the storm will, of course, it'll be a hurricane by tonight, I believe, but also that hurricane force winds or wind gusts may move into the New Orleans and River Parishes region and North Shore as we head into tomorrow late afternoon and evening. This is obviously not a great scenario. A storm hitting from the southwest would be perpendicular to the coast and drive storm surge well in from the south and west into much of southeast Louisiana. Now the risk for that storm surge actually climbs more for Mississippi, even into Alabama and far western portions of Florida as the storm is expected to grow. So what I'm going to do in this video is break down the meteorology behind what we're seeing, what the latest models are showing, what still could change, and then what the impacts are going to be to everyone in the path of this storm. I'll also touch on the rest of the tropics as well, since I know some of you are not here from the U.S., you're in other parts of the world, and I do not want to leave you guys out either. So here is a wide view of the Atlantic. And you'll see Francine is the only named storm on the map. Today is September 10th, the midpoint and peak of hurricane season in the Atlantic, with two other areas we're watching. Now, the first area is an invest that I think is starting to struggle and probably will fade, but an area behind it is going to be more favorable to see some development as we get to the end of this week and beyond. Right now, way offshore, nothing to really stress about, and nothing that I see for at least the next couple of weeks being a threat to the U.S., but something we'd still need to watch. As you guys know, things can change quite a bit. Also an area in the Pacific to watch with a 60% chance of development. Here is the local forecast for Francine. It has shifted to the right. Now the Hurricane Center takes it into the Atchafalaya Bay and southeastern Louisiana sometime tomorrow late in the afternoon and early evening. Wind speed around 90 miles per hour. Maybe it gets up to Category 2, which is 96 before weakening on landfall. But we are seeing the storm gathering intensity this morning and moving over an area of very high oceanic heat content, very warm water. The reason it actually struggled to form last night into a hurricane, it actually had a little bit of dry air coming in off of the Mexican mountains here that got into the center, but it is starting to overcome that now. And we are going to see some lag between when it goes over the hottest water to when it actually intensifies. But the intensification rate should pick up as the storm is moving in this general area later this afternoon, tonight, and into early tomorrow. Then intensity should level off. Now, the one thing that I think a lot of folks in Louisiana are obviously concerned with is where the final track ends up going, and the trend has shifted eastward. 2 days ago, the model average brought this into Cameron, Louisiana. It even had some impact on southeast Texas and Port Arthur. Yesterday, that shifted more towards Lafayette, Louisiana. Today, the mean of all the ensembles has the storm making landfall just west of Morgan City in the Atchafalaya Bay area, but continuing to the northeast into the Baton Rouge area. And several models are east of this, bringing the storm center very close to Metro New Orleans, into the river parishes, into Houma and Thibodaux, into the North Shore area, Hammond, St. Tammany Parish, Ponchatoula Parish, or Tangipahoa Parish, including Ponchatoula, and then into more Mississippi. So again, some adjustment here. We still have a chance where this system could intensify, about a 20% chance that it picks up more steam and not only goes past Category 1, but to Category 2. That would put us at 80 knots, which is close to 100 miles per hour, which would be a lower end Category 2. Very slim chance this gets to a high end 2 or a low end 3, but right now I think more likely it's a high end 2 or a low end, or a high end 1 or low end 2. Either way, not going to be a borderline storm like we saw with Hurricane Nicholas in 2021. It's going to be a stronger, potentially Category 2 storm, maybe more of a Hurricane Delta, for those of you that remember that back in 2020. Not quite Zeta from 2020 as well. Those hit portions of South Louisiana from the southwest. Delta came in this way. Zeta came in this way. So This is kind of fitting that analog as well here. Here's a look at the official Hurricane Center forecasted track, and we have hurricane warnings encompassing a good, strong majority of the Louisiana coastline all the way here to Grand Isle. And we also have a tropical storm warning, including all of greater New Orleans. That includes all the tidal lakes, the mouth of the Mississippi River, and now that has been extended to the entire Mississippi Gulf Coast, all the way here to the line with Alabama, right at Bayou Labatt. We do have a tropical storm watch across the Gulf Coast of Alabama, including Mobile Bay, Baldwin County, all the way over to the Florida-Alabama line. This has extended quite a bit from yesterday's forecast, as we are going to see impacts potentially quite a bit to the right. The actual path, or the cone of uncertainty, does still include Lafayette and Opelousas. The actual storm track takes it up into the river parishes, Assumption Parish, St. Mary Parish, and that area, and then continuing on into Livingston Parish, just east of Baton Rouge, and then up into southwest Mississippi, putting Macomb, Brookhaven, and Jackson just on the right side of the forecast track. But the Hurricane Center will be the first to tell you that it's not just necessarily the center of the path that needs to be watching this, but anyone in the path. I think it's less likely we see this shift back to the west of Lafayette. Probably more likely that the shift comes farther to the east, and that would put places like Houma, Thibodaux, New Orleans, Laplace, Hammond, Mandeville, Madisonville, Bogalusa, potentially on the nasty side of this storm. So there's still a chance for this to adjust. As far as intensity, I think that forecast is probably less likely to change. Category 1 to maybe low-end Category 2 is what we're looking at. Here are the key messages from the National Hurricane Center Miami. And you can see we're running out of time to prepare here. Impacts will start tomorrow morning. It's already raining now, but the nasty stuff starts tomorrow morning. And people who are in the hurricane warning area need to be rushing to complete preparation to be stuck inside here for a couple of days, or evacuating if they are in the coastal areas that are likely going to be dealing with storm surge. We are going to see a lot of rain as well. Where this eventually tracks could mean a big deal for low-lying areas to see flash flooding. It's been a wet summer, or second half of summer in this area, and obviously more rain on top of wind is going to make things worse. We are going to see tropical storm force winds moving to the south coast of Louisiana by morning tomorrow, extending inland to places like New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette around lunchtime, and then extending into southwestern Mississippi and even coastal Mississippi late in the day tomorrow on Wednesday, 9/11. The peak storm surge forecast has come up a little bit on the right side of this system. We still have a 5 to 10 foot storm surge forecast from Cameron to Port Fourchon, 4 to 7 feet for the Barataria Bay all the way to the mouth, 2 to 4 feet on the east-facing coast of Louisiana, including Lakes Pontchartrain, Maurepas, and Bourne, and all the way over to the Mississippi-Alabama border, and a 1 to 3 foot storm surge, including Mobile Bay, so we could see flooding even into Mobile as the system moves by to your west. We're not going to ignore Texas. If you're in Galveston and Houston, you're going to have some, or Galveston, you're going to have some rough storm surge, 1 to 3 feet. That's already impacting you now, but that'll continue into tomorrow. But if you're in Houston, fortunately for you, unlike with Beryl, this will be a front porch storm that you can sit and watch and just have a bit of a breeze. The weather should actually stay dry, I think, for greater Houston, and maybe a little bit wetter towards the coast. We do have a threat for flooding as well, a moderate risk for flooding. Fortunately, our storm will speed up as it makes landfall and accelerate into Mississippi tomorrow, on Thursday. So the rainfall totals are not going to be prolific like we saw with Harvey, but they will still be high enough to cause flooding in Louisiana, and in particular in low-lying New Orleans. That's something that we definitely need to be concerned with. Another thing I haven't talked a lot about, but we're starting to now see, is this system's going to pick up some jet stream energy, and wind shear will increase. And as a result, I do think we may see several tornadoes out of this. I think if you remember with Hurricane Beryl, it interacted with a jet stream as it came northward. This one will not be quite as strong, but it will still be strong enough to support tornadoes beginning here tonight across the far southern portion of Louisiana. And then tomorrow, that risk for tornadoes grows, including Baton Rouge, but especially, I think, Houma, New Orleans, Slidell, areas south and east of New Orleans, St. Bernard, Plaquemines Parish, and coastal Mississippi. I do think there's going to be a pretty decent chance for tornadoes here tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. We may see a few tornadoes as well all the way into the Florida Panhandle and in southern Alabama. And overnight, a smaller risk, but one that extends up to Jackson, Natchez, and Vicksburg in Mississippi, mainly on the right side of this. I think if our track comes in this direction, your greatest chance for tornadoes may actually end up being in this area and here, mainly during the afternoon and into the evening hours. As we move on into the day on Thursday, this system is going to weaken significantly, but there will be heating of the day. There'll be an increase in the low-level wind field, and that actually puts most of the state of Alabama at risk for a few tornadoes as well. I think the area of maybe greatest concern is going to be Tuscaloosa on down to just north and east of Mobile during the late morning and into the afternoon hours. Not to count out the other areas in brown, but if there were an area here that maybe got an upgrade to 10%, I think this would be the region we need to be watching. Again, that's going to potentially change depending on what happens here with the final landfall. So you can see here on the map, we have a very well closed off outflow area here. It's going to start to grow as we get through the day today. We also have kind of a leading edge of overrunning moisture, producing some rain and gusty winds off the coast of Louisiana, but some of that rain spreading inland today. There is a short wave that is going to move in this direction, and that's going to turn our system northeast. It'll actually accelerate as it does so, but then after that short wave leaves and lifts out, this huge area of high pressure here is going to put up a block and keep the area dry across this region. What will happen is our storm will come up to here, but then as it gets closer to that block, it'll move into this area and slow down and maybe putz around into the weekend across this region. It will weaken, but we may still be dealing with showers and locally gusty winds across those areas, but kind of be stuck here as it just can't make any more progress. So let's talk about the circulation, the winds, the gusty winds, and the rain that we're going to be expecting here. And you can see on our infrared satellite, we're starting to see better concentration of colder thunderstorm cloud tops here as our system begins to move northeast. This area will continue to fill in, although I am going to say this, the rate of intensification that we're looking at today, tonight, tomorrow, for the time being looks to be a little bit less than feared, but still could be significant. We still could see this go from 65 to 105 before it makes landfall. But the rate right now has been a little bit hampered. Now we'll see if tonight that changes. We do have a very healthy outflow. You can see on the visible here, as the system is pulling away from these mountains here in Mexico, the dry air is getting left behind and it's going into a more favorable environment here with a lot more moisture. But kind of segmented into two pieces here. We've got the main core here with the eye wall beginning to try to form in this area. But then we've got this area here associated with the front, and that may steal a little bit of the oceanic heat content away from this. Going to be a little bit of a fight over the power that's there in place for this to form, which is actually probably a good thing, as we don't want this thing rapidly intensifying, that's for sure. But you will see that on the radar, it is trying to form an eye in this general area in here. It's got some pretty healthy structure with it and some banding features, and those typically precede what would be an intensification phase. So that's where we are. We're going to see showers across Louisiana today and tonight. No severe weather until this system gets up into here, and then we have to keep an eye on southeast Louisiana overnight. And realistically, it's going to be before daybreak tomorrow. All right, we've had recon flying through the system. The pressure is down to 989, so it's a strong tropical storm. One thing you'll notice here that the recon is measuring a larger area of tropical storm force wind than it did yesterday. So it's definitely becoming better organized, especially on the southeastern side of our circulation. There's also a little bit of a circulation up in here. This is maybe what's left of what was part of that front a couple of days ago. It's still showing up here on recon, but it's not affecting the center here. It's just something that I'm watching just to see if there's any more interaction here. The track has shifted east, and these are the latest spaghetti plots. The pink model has a very low skilled model, I will say, but the majority of the guidance bring this system in somewhere between New Iberia and Houma, Louisiana. And then you'll see it slows down after landfall and bends back towards the left, moving up into the Delta region, and then stalls when it gets up into here. The models are in good agreement. Of course, they all agreed yesterday too, but ended up shifting to the right by maybe 70 to 80 miles. So that has obviously changed what impacts we may be dealing with here in southeastern Louisiana and Mississippi. The intensity forecast still showing strengthening, perhaps quick strengthening here tonight into tomorrow, but models have backed off on this, threatening to become a major hurricane. There's still a chance it might get to 2, but more likely a 1, according to this. Does that mean it doesn't land over here? I mean, we certainly still could get to that point, and I would prepare for it, but a lot less likely than up in here. So we will take that. The one thing is, as the wind shear increases, we're going to see very quick weakening, and this could be a depression by the time we get to Thursday afternoon while it's moving into Mississippi. Here's the latest GFS run, still showing quick intensification tonight, pressure down into the 970s, but not the 960s, fortunately. Then that pressure stops dropping as the storm moves inland. Landfall in the GFS over Terrebonne Parish and moving up into Lafourche. And then this brings the storm center right over the western side of New Orleans, right up into St. Tammany Parish late tomorrow night, and then weakening as it moves further northeastward into Mississippi. Very heavy rain on the northern side of our storm. A lot more dry air comes in behind it, so the worst of the storm is going to be the front end of it. The back end will see quick improvement, and then we'll see this weaken to a depression by the time it approaches the Memphis area Thursday afternoon, and just a remnant low by Friday. Some of that moisture does get drawn eastward into the southern Appalachians, but east of the mountains, not a big rainmaker at this point. It's more the boundary that's kind of hovering here that gets stuck that may be the focus for our rain through the weekend, parts of coastal Georgia and South Carolina. So that's what we're looking at. Looking at that was the regional global model. This is the hurricane model. The HWRF still showing intensification here, significant intensification into the 960s. I don't think the 12Z is in yet. But I would not be shocked if the latest forecast run were a little bit weaker at this point than what this is showing. Either way, you can see it's going to have a healthy core and will be quite a bit stronger a day from now, approaching Category 2 intensity, moving northeastward towards the river parishes here late tomorrow afternoon. Some disagreement on when it comes in. Could be as soon as early afternoon, could be as late as early evening, but it is going to hit pretty hard, and then it will slow down as it moves through Mississippi at night. Here's another look at another model. That was the HWRF. I meant to show you guys the HMON model. So let's do that. And I think it's probably too strong in the short term, so I don't think we're going to see this getting down to 960 or lower. At least I really hope not. But a healthy looking system here, weakening slowly as it moves inland in southeast Louisiana, then weakening more quickly as it moves into Mississippi here later tomorrow night. And then finally, the HAFS model. This is our newest tropical model. It continues to have that landfall point farther to the east. Remember, it was over here yesterday. Now it's down here with landfall around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, just south of Houma, and then weakening as this storm center actually moves over Jefferson Parish and then tracks through Slidell here in the early evening. A very similar track to what Zeta took back when it hit in 2020, just a little west of where Zeta hit. That ended up being a Category 3 storm. I don't think this one quite gets to that threshold. Here's a look at potential wind gusts from this system here, wind speeds and wind gusts. The strongest stay offshore, but we could see very strong winds over southeastern Louisiana, especially on the eastern side of our storm, maybe getting close to hurricane force in the New Orleans area, and then quite a bit of weakening as this moves up. There may be some pretty gusty winds over the Tennessee Valley area as well here. Here's the halves model. These are wind gusts. That was wind speed. And you can see wind gusts over the oil platforms may exceed 110 miles per hour. That will drop off significantly as this moves inland. But you can see still significant tropical storm force winds over Lafayette, Baton Rouge, and Hammond here late in the day Wednesday. Hurricane force winds are most likely on the eastern side here. And this does include Lafourche Parish, Jefferson Parish, St. Charles, and St. James parishes, and maybe even sneaking up into Orleans Parish here as we get to late in the afternoon. Widespread power outages would be likely with these kind of wind. Even coastal Mississippi could see strong winds. Even well inland, we may see some pretty high winds getting up over 50 miles per hour. The GFS model, this shows you the corridor of the strongest wind. This was the 6Z model, and you can see wind gusts getting close to hurricane force in all of greater New Orleans, beyond hurricane force in Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish, as well as St. Mary Parish and maybe Iberia Parish as well here across the coastal areas. So very strong winds as this makes landfall, but they drop off significantly as the storm moves inland. And the European shows the same thing as well. Here's the NAM model, a little farther west than where I think this lands, but it's got some stronger wind potential around Lafayette. I think you have to move that east about 50 miles. And then the HRRR model does that. This is the earlier HRRR, and this does bring hurricane force wind gusts in the Metairie and Kenner, as well as around the Houma area, as well as near New Iberia and Avery Island and Morgan City. So anybody in this area, I think, really does need to be watching for hurricane force wind gusts and likely power outages. It pretty much puts all of southeast Louisiana, except maybe the mouth, in that area, strong winds. And we could see wind gusts that are strong enough for power outages well into Mississippi as well. So that's a look at the wind. I'll speed things along here. Let's take a look at potential rainfall, and you can see significant totals here of 7 to 12 inches near where the storm makes landfall. That includes the New Orleans area. The HRRR model is farther east than the NAM. It shows significant rain, mainly for the coastal parishes, but several inches as well around the Baton Rouge area. Fortunately, a little bit less in New Orleans, but that may be wrong. We can see the tornado parameters are climbing here during the overnight hours near the coast. During the morning tomorrow, they climb more significantly. I think this is probably overdone, but some pretty high parameters tomorrow afternoon for tornadoes across southeast Louisiana, maybe all the way to Baton Rouge, but more likely New Orleans area, coastal Mississippi, even into the rest of southern Mississippi, including Hattiesburg. And oh, by the way, if you're in southern Alabama and far western Florida, you do have a risk for tornadoes here at night, tomorrow night. That risk does come down some as we get to Thursday, but you can see Alabama still has a risk for some tornadoes, as does the northern portion of the western panhandle on Thursday. Here's the HRRR model real quick, which shows you that those tornado chances as well coming up quite a bit here around lunchtime tomorrow in southeast Louisiana into the afternoon in southern Mississippi. And then that threat should start to wind down towards evening. It will continue, though, across parts of Alabama and Florida, as you can see here. Starts to come up late in the day, but more likely at night over southern Alabama and parts of northwest Florida and southern Mississippi as well. So that's it for Francine. Not a lot I think would change at this point, but I will keep you posted. Here's a look at the rest of the tropical Atlantic. Here's Francine. Here's our front. Nothing going to form along it. Just a bit of a weakness here. Here is a series of invests that we're watching. Or series of waves, and then here's the one behind it that might have a better chance of forming into something here towards the end of the week or weekend. You can see that a little bit more closely. We're drying out in the islands today, but turning wet over Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And here are a series of waves which are struggling to develop. This is AL92, and not looking super healthy, but we still have a chance for development. The one behind it might have a better chance. Here's the lowering chances for this to actually develop and become a threat to the islands, and you can see most of our models keep it weak. A couple try to strengthen it, but honestly, I think if it gets to this level, the models are maybe picking up on the feature behind it and merging the two together, and that should be well off to the north and east of the islands as we get to this weekend. And finally, in the western Pacific, we have another storm forming. This is Tropical Depression Babinka. It is over Guam right now. You can see it is predicted to strengthen significantly and may be approaching far southern Japan, including Okinawa, as a stronger typhoon with winds of 110 miles per hour. Eventual landfall spot probably going to be in China, but we need to watch it in Taipei, as well as the rest of the Okinawa prefecture here. And the official forecast is yet another very strong typhoon hitting China as we get to the weekend. Man, what a bad season it's been here. It started quiet, but it got really busy very quickly. Here's the infrared, and you can see Guam right in the center of this feature. The radar showing very heavy rain hitting Guam. If you have family over there, you may want to check up on them. Fortunately, the winds are not super strong at this point, but they are expected to come up as the system goes over very warm water. I appreciate everybody's time today. I hope you all are safe in Louisiana. Please consider becoming a subscriber if you haven't already. I know I went a little bit long today, but just wanted to thank you for your time, and I wanted to give all the honor and glory to God. As a Christian, that is the driving force between me being able to bless other folks, is God has given me this gift to share with you all. And Psalm 133 says, how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity, which is something we all struggle with. It's trying to get along with your neighbor who may not believe what you believe, or may have a totally different stance on things, or whatever. God wants us all to live together in unity, and he wants his people to live together in unity. Many of us have similar beliefs, but we still are sinners and we still struggle with each other. And that's what the enemy wants us to do. He wants to take away the joy in our life that God has given us and instead wants us to fight battles that really are a waste of our resources, a waste of our time, and just continue to put us at odds with each other. When we're dealing with natural disasters like this, like hurricane season, we need to come together and support each other no matter what our neighbors believe, no matter what we believe. We need to support each other, and that's what excites God, is when we come together. And that's my charge to you, is to look out for your neighbor no matter what they believe, just to take care of people, because we're only here for a limited amount of time, and that can change. So I pray you all have a safe day, and we'll catch up again tomorrow. God bless you.